Once upon a time, there was a woodcutter who lived in a cottage in the woods with his wife and their 2 children, Hansel and Gretel. They were poor, but their love for each other kept them happy and safe. One day, the woodcutter's wife became ill and died. He was very, very sad. "I must find a mother for Hansel and Gretel," he said, "but who and where?" Every night he paced back and forth, wishing, wishing, and wishing. But one must be careful what one wishes for. One night there was a knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Can you do it? Knock, knock, knock. He opened it, and there stood a strange woman. "Well," she said, "aren't you going to let me in?" "Of course," he said, "of course." And so it was that Hansel and Gretel awoke to find they had a new mother. "It is odd how this woman just appeared," the father thought, "but it is what I wished for. What could go wrong?" But from then on, nothing went right. This new mother was mean. She didn't like children, didn't like them at all, but she was especially mean to Hansel and Gretel. Winter was over, but where was spring? The sun didn't shine, the birds didn't sing. Every day the woodcutter's new wife shouted, "Husband, chop the wood! Chop, chop, chop." Can you do it with me? Chop, chop, chop. Hansel, churn the butter. Churn, churn, churn. Are you doing it? Churn, churn, churn. Gretel, scrub the dishes. Scrub, scrub, scrub. Scrub, scrub, scrub. All day long, there was nothing but chopping and churning and scrubbing. Spring turned to summer, but the garden didn't grow. Summer turned to fall, but there was nothing to harvest. The chickens refused to lay eggs, and the cows refused to give milk, and the woodcutter became even sadder. One night, after they had gone to bed hungry, they heard their stepmother shouting, "The chickens refuse to lay eggs, and the cows refuse to give milk, all because of those 2 nasty children. They must go. They must go." They must go. "But my dear wife, I don't have the heart to leave my children in the woods all alone. I cannot do it. Please don't ask me." "Take them far, far into the forest." "But there are wild beasts that might attack them. And I've heard there's an evil witch, too." "I don't care. Take them to the darkest corner of the woods where they will never find their way home. It's them or us." The next morning, the woodcutter took his 2 children and led them into the woods. They walked and walked and walked, but as they went, Hansel dropped little pieces of bread here and there on the ground. Drop, 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 drop. Hours passed, drop. Miles passed, drop. The sun began to set, drop. Deep in the forest, the woodcutter turned and walked away. Soon he was gone, and they were alone again, and Gretel began to cry. Boo-hoo! Boo-hoo! Don't worry, said Hansel. Follow me. But when he turned around, he realized that the breadcrumbs had gone. The menacing crow sat at the head of the path and cawed. It had eaten all the crumbs. Well, Gretel sobbed. I'm frightened, she said. I'm cold and I'm hungry and I miss my mother, my real mother. Don't be afraid. I'll look after you. But suddenly it was nighttime and it got very dark. Hansel and Gretel were tired and scared. They were so tired, they sat down under a large oak tree. All night, the two children huddled together, comforting each other, until at last they fell asleep. In the morning, Hansel and Gretel walked around the forest looking for the path home. We are well and truly lost, said Gretel. We will never find our way. We may as well sit and wait to die. And she plopped down on the forest floor. Don't be so dramatic, Gretel, said Hansel. He pulled his sister up and the two continued walking until they came to an odd little cottage. Oh, Hansel could not believe his eyes. This is chocolate, he said. Oh, and this is peppermint, said Gretel. Oh, nom, nom, nom. Can you do the slurping with me? Peppermint and chocolate. Gom, 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 gom. Now, this is gingerbread, they said together, and they pulled off a big chunk to eat. Gom, 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 gom. Suddenly, the front door opened, and an old woman stood before them. Well, 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 she said. Come in, come in. You have nothing to fear. Take a seat. I will bring you milk to wash down your food. But as they ate, the old woman locked the door. Then she turned, and her smile was not so kind. I, too, am hungry, she said, but I prefer meat to gingerbread. In fact, I prefer to eat children. The witch chased them into a cage and locked it. I have waited so long. I have waited for a father to wish for a new mother for his children. I waited until the seasons changed and I could put a curse on the cow and the chickens and the crops. I waited until your father was under my spell. Now I will wait until you are fattened up, and then I will wait no longer. I will cook you, I will baste you, I will bake you, and I will have the best meal of my life, and then I will do it all over again. Days passed, and the witch gave more and more sweets and chocolate to the children. Then Hansel had an idea. Witch, I hate to see you working so hard, so much work, lifting sacks of flour and sugar, cooking and baking. You should let Gretel help you. And the witch, who was becoming lazy, let Gretel out of the cage. Soon Hansel was fatter than he'd ever been, and Gretel was wiser than she had ever been. The witch said, "Light the oven, Gretel. Today I will bake your brother." Gretel lit the oven. After a while, the witch said, "Go and see if the oven is hot enough." Gretel did as she was told, but then returned. "I can't tell if it's hot enough. How hot is hot? How hot is enough? You should show me." "Useless girl! Children are good for nothing but eating." As the witch bent down to peer inside the oven, Gretel pushed her in and slammed the door. The witch screamed, "Ah!" as Gretel ran to free her brother. "Quickly, Hansel, we've got to get out of here." They ran and ran. And just as the children cleared the cottage, the whole building came down and everything went silent. "Come on, Hansel," Gretel said. "I think we should go this way." And Gretel was right. Soon they found themselves in a familiar part of the woods, and there was their father, and the cow, and the chickens, and the cottage, and no stepmother in sight. The dreaded witch was dead. The evil stepmother had disappeared, and happiness returned to their home. They grabbed each other's hands and danced for joy.